Option. Okay.
Hello, Kara, am I okay?
Yes, you're okay.
This position is okay?
Yes, please.
Huh?
But
Will you spotlight me?
let me do that. There's a reflection on your glasses though.
So that's better.
But I have pinned you. I think we are okay with that.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to have you on board. Karibuni sana. My name is Caroline, and variable interpreter is Grace. So welcome for this webinar, and feel at home. Ask all the questions that you have. We shall be glad to share and learn from one another. So we will begin with a word of prayer, and starting us off is Lillian. So Lillian, please unmute. And just lead us in a word of prayer.
Thank you. Good morning.
Lillian, go ahead.
Okay, we are praying. Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, we humbly come before you this morning. Thank you for your care throughout the night. We thank you, God, for the gift of life. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to gather here and have this meeting. We are asking you for your guidance and wisdom. Lord, when all goes well and according to your will, we shall thank you and glorify your name. For in the name of Jesus Christ, we pray and believe.
Amen. Amen. So once again, welcome. Let me just allow, we're going to hear stories from our caregivers, their work, how it's been for them. And then from there, we will continue. So at this point in time, I would like to welcome our caregivers, starting with Naomi. Naomi, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Yes, you can enable your video. Yeah. Please go ahead, Naomi, and just share with us your journey, how it has been for you, and in light of our webinar, inclusion in education for children with autism.
Hi, so my name is Naomi. I hope I'm clear enough.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so my name is Naomi Sanguli Otieno. I have a son who is 18. Yes. You wanted me to say just an introduction?
Yes, an introduction and a little bit of your journey, how it has been, how you got to know, and how it's been so far.
Okay. When my son's name is Zuriel. So our journey started when Zuriel was 5. I can say when he was diagnosed, he was like around 5 years.
Okay.
Like that's fully diagnosed from like a doctor. So how we started, of course we searched for schools that could include him, but it was not an easy search. But finally we settled on a school where like just a daycare school, where there were like good caregivers, people who understood him, although we had hoped from one school to another. Yes, so that's where the journey started. So we just took him to a normal daycare where he, at least so that he can gather speech, because he didn't have speech at around from 3 years, between 3 years and 5, he had not developed full speech. So we took him to just a normal play group just to interact with the kids, and speech started picking up. So currently he is in year 2, that's equivalent to grade 2 in the normal system. Yes, and he is doing quite well, and he is in a normal school.
Oh, we thank God for that. I know for every caregiver with a child with autism and any other special need, just communicating is one of the key things that almost every caregiver looks up, looks forward to. So now let us hear from Isaac. Isaac, please also share with us your story.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Asparagus. I was a caregiver of a special needs child. The journey has been okay. Yeah, you have to be patient with them in class. Yeah, thank you very much for this.
Okay, thank you, Isaac. We appreciate. Was finding a school easy for you?
It was not easy for me. Right now, I don't have a job. Yeah, so I'm still looking.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Isaac. We do appreciate.
You're welcome.
So one of the things that we struggled with, or most caregivers struggled with when it comes to going to school is one, what kind of school, first of all, can the child thrive in school? What kind of school can the child go to? What is inclusion when it comes to the school, the learning system? And today we just want to enlighten each other on what we should look for as caregivers, what is actually effective that tells you that this is working for my child who has autism and this is not working. When you're actually looking for a school, what are those key things that the school has to have? Therefore, just to bring us up to speed with that, we have one of us, we have George. And George, have you joined us yet? Okay, as we await for George to come, maybe to come on board, probably we can hear still from Isaac once more, and Naomi just a little bit. What were those signs that you saw in your child that told you that my child has autism?
Okay, I had a child in class who had conversions. He was conversing, so I didn't know how to go about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to go look for a therapist in school. Yeah. So I've never dealt with conversions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. What about you, Naomi? What were some of these signs that made you know that your child had autism? Naomi? Naomi, you're with us. I think Naomi has, we've lost Naomi for a little bit. All right. Oh, Naomi, you're with us? Okay. Naomi? Okay. We will get back to Naomi.
Sorry, I was just changing my.
To make sure they also understand what we are talking about today, so that we are not making any decisions that we should not. But at least I really hope that we can. As everyone knows, we have a process ongoing as we need.
Sorry, Naomi. Please proceed.
Okay, sorry, I was having a connection issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe you can repeat if there's any question that was asked.
Yes, I was asking, what were those signs that made you know that your child had autism? What did you see?
Okay, so at around, okay, there were of course children that were born at the same age with Zuriel. So you could find like a simple task, okay, but around 3 years there's a time I met, okay, that's when like it first like hit me, like maybe my child is not developing normally. When at around 3 years, I could put him with his peers. Say, for example, a simple song like Baby Jesus, Zuriel could not sing it. And then you find like, in terms of, because he developed normally, like he walked at a normal age. He did everything basically at a normal age. But now those milestones of like, especially like speech, he couldn't, and then he was extra hyperactive. I can say like extra kabisa. So he was, so those are like a few things that I could pick up that I couldn't see from the other children. So at first we were like, I think it clears with time and all, but then we're like, it's not, you find the other children, the speech is developing, they called their mummies, the name mom, maybe at around 2 years. Me was called a mom, I think at around, is it 4 years or 5 years there? So you find such things then led us to now, you know, the way you have like a growth, can I say a growth graph? The way you know your child, you've logged in maybe into a website. I can't remember the name of that website, just to check the growth of your child. Then you are told maybe at a certain age, the child should start speaking, the child should start walking and all. So when he couldn't, you know, with research, so I could Google, like most of the times I could just Google and understand why is he not developing speech? Then the word autism came up. So you see, then from there, then we started researching. We went to even Kise and all, you know, like just trying to understand what this autism is. But Matthew, we've not diagnosed autism. We are just curious to understand like what it could be. So I can say maybe between that age, that's when, okay, those are the what can I say, the things I saw that were not adding up, comparing him with other kids and not seeing him meet most of his milestones, especially speech, at the accorded age. So we went for even the hearing, because people will tell us maybe he has an hearing problem. So we went to Gertrude's, they checked, he was okay. Everything was just okay, only that speech was not coming. So basically that's how I identified, like just comparing him with his peers and he's not at par with them. Yes, I could say that's how then we came to now discover maybe autism later on. Then, yeah, then we had to take him now to a specialist for him to be diagnosed and formally be declared that he has autism. Yeah, but we could see those signs. But for us, the main thing was speech. He couldn't gather speech and he was extremely hyperactive. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think even for other caregivers who are listening in, those are some of the pointers that it is good to pick, either to look at maybe your child or even a family member whose child could be going through the same and they do not know. Thank you for sharing that. So now we would like to know more about assessment and placement, because when we're talking about inclusion in education for children with autism, this is key. And at this point in time, I want to invite our KISE representative, Mr. Arika. Mr. Arika, welcome. And just take us through what is this assessment? What should parents expect when we talk about assessment for a child with autism? And at the end of the day, when it comes to placement, how do we ensure that at least the school that the child goes to is inclusive in nature? Karibu.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. I'm in my rural home, but I'll try to be with you for some time. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you guys about this subject that I love so much, autism. My name is Arika. I'm a senior lecturer at Kenya Institute of Special Education. Right now, I'm the head of the Department of Psychosocially Different. That is, it houses two areas. That is emotional and behavioral difficulties and autism. So I think this is the right place for me to discuss matters of autism. I don't know where to start from, but let me introduce Kise. Kise is an institution that has got so many mandates. And one of the mandates that we usually have
Hello, Mr. Rika.
is sorry, am I back?
Yes, now you're back.
Sorry, there's so many phone calls coming in. I'm using my phone, so. So KISA, one of the mandates that KISA carries and we handle is assessment of children with special needs. One of the areas that we assess is autism. First of all, I can hear the caregivers, the parents, they have talked about how they suspected their children to have issues with autism or something like that, and I really recommended them. Once the parents have such a kind of a suspicion, they usually go out to seek for help. One of the areas that they are referred to come to is KISE, because it's an institution for special needs. So we receive so many parents and caregivers coming in to ask questions about their children. So once they come in, we have trained officers who usually they receive them and then they explain their issues. One of the things that the questions that they are usually asked is about what are the characteristics the child is portraying, showing, and they group them. And some caregivers, they do a good job by coming with their children to the assessment center when they want help. I had Naomi, she has been at KISA. I feel good about it. And once you get that KISA, they can now give you a date when to come in so that you can get the specialist and we start the process. So if they suspect that you need to be seen by a specialist in autism, you are booked in for that kind of service. Usually, we have been having assessment days those days were like 2 to 3 days a week, but now we have assessment throughout the week and throughout the holidays. So KISA is open for the parents and caregivers throughout. But you have to make an appointment and then you are given a date to come in. Then when you come in, if you have been booked so that you are seen, we take you through several processes. And one of the things that we do is we take your biodata and then take you the case history about the child. And then we usually rule out several things from the case history. And if we realize that there is an indication that the child is autistic, we usually go ahead and administer an heterogeneous questionnaire that we made at KISE that caters for the Kenyan situation. And then we score those areas. And remember, we have the 3 areas that we look at: communication, social skills, imagination, and all that. We score, and then after that, we can see which area has an issue. It can be social skills, it can be communication, it can be imagination, all those areas, or it can be both, because autism has got those areas that is communication, social skills, imagination, and so on. And then after we suspect that the child is having autism in one of those areas, we usually don't do the labeling. We cannot tell the parents that, you know, your child is autistic. What we do, we work with the Kenyatta National Hospital, and we have our child psychiatrist office doctors at that institution. And we write to them to tell them what we have seen and what we have done. So we request for more partnership in terms of finding out the solution or what's happening with the child. They usually take time and usually give us a feedback. And then after they give us a feedback, they are the only people who are allowed to do the labeling, so they can say that the child is having autism, comorbid or accompanied by another. It can be ADHD or something else. Then when we get that report, it comes back to us again, and we call the caregivers, the parents, to come over for more discussions. And after they come to our institution, we look at the case, and then we do now what we call educational interventions. That means we start embarking on a journey to get a placement for the child in educational institutions. So we have so many questions to ask the parents. For example, where the parent is living and schools that are around. And we base our recommendations from the doctor and our own recommendations. For example, if we have a child who is under 12 years old, we cannot place that child in any institution that is boarding, because the child needs the love and the care from the parents. We usually ask questions about what the parents want, and we give them our expertise about the schools that can be good for the child. And what we are doing today is that most of the cases that we handle with autism, students having issues with communication and social skills, we just place them in an inclusive institutions that are available in the neighborhood. And that is what we are trying to promote, so that at least the child can acquire those skills as soon as possible. For example, when a child is having an impairment or issues with social skills, we usually recommend that we place the child in a public institution in the neighborhood, whereby the child can share with others and learn from others, and be next to the caregivers so that they can give other support. Then after that, after we write to those schools to accept the child. And then when the child goes to the school, but there's one thing that we usually do to complete all to start and then complete the process. That is, we have to reschedule for after the child has been admitted in that institution or school. We reschedule for kind of a review after 3 months or 6 months. And then if we get time, we usually would like to see how the child is doing in the school, which becomes very tricky, but that's how it's supposed to be, so that we can follow the child to the school and advise the teachers and other shadow teachers who work with the child on the way forward in terms of the methods that they can use to ensure that the child learns. Now, again, at the KISE, we usually work with other professionals who are in the compound. And that is, we have speech therapists. We usually have those services at KISE. We can recommend that the child can come over once or twice a week for speech. We can recommend for occupational therapy, physiotherapy at the institution, because it's a national institution that has all those state-of-the-art equipments and services that caregivers require. We usually, child is very young, we can recommend for play therapy, where they can come in and play with others during specific hours of the day. And we have other therapies that are at the institution. For example, we have sensory integration rooms and sensory integration kind of equipment that we can use. So it will depend on case after case, how we can handle that. And if the caregivers and the child comes from the neighborhood, then it's possible that they can enjoy those services at KISE, which are almost free because KISE is a government institution. I think that is a brief summary of what we do at KISE, but I was just going on from how we receive the child, what we do, where we send the child to, the reports that we get, and then what we do in order to help the parents have a school or a placement somewhere. And then what the follow-up activities that we do and the services that we do at the institution, KISE. I hope I can stop there. If there's any question, I can answer. But it was just a summary of what we do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rika. We appreciate the breakdown. Maybe what we can also ask, as the assessment is being done, what is the time frame that a caregiver looks at? Normally, how long does this take? From them coming to KISE, then to Kenyatta National Hospital, to finally going to school.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Not Naomi. Can I say your name? It's written Gifted Jam.
Yes. Yes, I'm Caroline.
Caroline. Thank you so much. Yeah, the type Caroline and the caregivers. Okay.
Sorry.
It will depend. I hope you are getting me. It will depend.
Yes,
for example, you can come in and then we have the bookings. We might be having a long queue. For example, you can be given 2 weeks so that you can be able to be seen by us. So from the time you report at KISE that you want your child to be assessed, it might take some time. That is, depends on the queue, because we usually have so many cases right now coming up. So you might be, for example, number 20, and we usually see about a maximum of about 3 or 4 per day for quality services. We cannot go more than that. And then if it can take probably 10 days to 2 weeks for you to be seen by us, and then we have to send you to see the doctor. And it might take, depends on the appointment at Kenyatta National Hospital. You might be told, I'm told that the queue is very long. Sometimes it takes almost 3 months for a parent to be seen. That's the most frustrating part of it. And then, but when we get the report back, usually they send an email to us. We usually call the parents when they come in. We don't usually delay after receiving the information, the feedback from the doctors at Kenyatta National Hospital. We usually call them right away and then we discuss. So when it comes to the issue of placement, we advise caregivers to plan ahead, because, for example, the schools are now opening, and I'm told, even if I'm in my rural village, the line is so long because the parents want their children to be placed somewhere. So probably those are some of the challenges. So Caroline, I cannot be able to tell exactly the timeline, but you can see it's a very tedious and very rigorous process that requires a lot of patience. And number two, it requires that you plan ahead, so that if you are planning for the child to be placed in an institution in the coming academic year, you have to work backwards so that you can be able to get all the documentation the school requires before the school opens. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for that. I think to any caregiver who would want to bring their child to KISE, have now a better understanding of the process, and we are very appreciative of how you have broken it down. So asante sana.
Thank you.
Yes. So at this point in time, we have with us Poja. Poja is from Kaizora, but I will ask her to introduce herself, because we know that education and therapy has to go hand in hand, and especially for children with autism. So Poja, welcome, and just tell us, introduce yourself and what you do, plus the different therapies. Karibu, Poja.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, everyone. My name is Pooja Panester. I am a board-certified behavior analyst, studying my doctorate in behavior medicine as well at the moment. I'm also the director at Kaizora. Kaizora has a center over here in Nairobi, where we're providing applied behavior analysis, which is kind of like a behavior therapy. We're providing speech therapy, occupational therapy, social skills training, special education, vocational training. Basically, when a child is diagnosed with any kind of developmental disorder, they're able to receive pretty much all the services that they require, including physiotherapy at the center. So it's like a one-stop station for everything required. We also have another center in Dar es Salaam that does the same thing. And we also have a foundation, Kaizora Foundation, that is spearheaded towards fundraising so that we can provide services for those who are unable to afford. So we take in applications for that. We also fundraise to provide awareness services around different counties. So pre-COVID, we had a 3-day consultative visit and training in Meru, where we did training for doctors, nurses, teachers, students, and parents. We also did a lot of free consultations, diagnosis, because it was a panel of a speech therapist, myself, behavior specialist, and a pediatric neurologist. So we're able to diagnose, give prescriptions where needed. So our intention is to go county by county, but funding is not always easy to come across. So that's basically Kaizora in a nutshell. We also work with schools, work with families in their homes. So in schools, especially for when children have graduated from Kaizora, they've made the progress that they need to, and now they're ready for the next step. We then work with the school on the transition process and inclusive education and what it should look like. And in the home setup, depending on what the child is receiving, we are also able to guide them on how to work within the home with the child, train the caregiver or the nanny on how they can stimulate the child rather than just keeping them safe. We can go above and beyond just that. Yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. I also am accredited in ABA training, so time allowing, I'm trying to fit that in so that we can start training more supervisors in ABA and have more of that happening around the country.
Okay, thank you very much, Pooja. Now, Pooja, just to throw in a question to you, you talked about transitioning to school and, letting be inclusive in nature. Maybe you can break down that for us. What do you look for when you're helping the caregiver to transition the child to a school in an inclusive setup?
Okay, so first of all, the child needs to have some skills that are required in mainstream education. These include group skills, being able to follow instructions and then being able to follow instructions within a group, being able to sit within a group environment without disruptions. So can they, sit without disrupting the rest of the group during whether it's circle time or whatever the child is working on, while also if the teacher says, everybody clap your hands, are they able to kind of follow those simple things? Can they follow the routine? If they can learn how to follow a routine for a school, then that would be easy. They need to be fairly independent in terms of feeding themselves, toilet training, those kind of aspects, so that when they're within the school system, they're not going to be bullied about such things or require too much additional help. So we work on all those things at the center before transition happens. Those are some of the basic things that we're looking at before the child. Sorry?
No, sorry about that.
Okay.
Just proceed.
So those are some of the basic skills we're looking at before the child transitions. We need the school to be on board. So there are many schools that I have done some training on with schools as a whole wide system in terms of positive behavior management. So this works well for children with any kind of special requirements and also other children, because being able to create a positive environment for the children to learn is always more effective. So we work with the school in that sense, and then where required, I may go in and do some observations. We are not big advocates on shadow teachers, because what happens with a shadow teacher is the child then becomes very dependent on the shadow teacher. So if the teacher says, everybody clap your hands, you'll find that the child looks at the shadow teacher, the shadow teacher will say, clap your hands, and then the child will clap their hands. So that instructional control with the teacher gets a little bit lost unless it is really supervised on how the shadow teacher is supporting the child so that they can actually create a more inclusive environment. Their role has to be to facilitate the teacher, to be able to give the instructions, the child to follow the teacher's instructions, and maybe where needed, the one-on-one support for specific tasks. But if a shadow teacher is shadowing a child with that, as a shadow, the child will not get an opportunity to be included per se with everything else. So we also work with the teacher on differentiation of tasks, depending on the level that the child is learning at, because we do want them to keep up with academics as well. So we like to use the Universal Design for Learning, UDL. It's a specific method of inclusivity. And using those methods, we guide the teachers, the school on including the child wherever possible, however possible. And we try and prep the child before the child goes to school. And then if the child still has some difficulties, we do recommend that the parents bring them maybe on Saturdays for a session or two, depending on what they require. And we just follow up with that until the family is comfortable enough to say, we don't need your support anymore, in which case we fade away.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. A question is actually just a question has come up, and it's to you. And the question is, why is therapy important to the autistic child?
So the reason therapy is important, that's a great question. Why do we have to provide this intensive intervention for this child? A lot of children you will find, typically developing children, will learn from the natural environment around them. They'll watch a child doing something, they'll try it out, they'll figure out ways to make it better. And that's how they learn from the natural environment, so that they don't need any specific additional training. So when you put your child in playgroup, they're watching the others, they're learning from each other, they're excited to learn from the teacher. But when it comes to our children with autism, they are not very open to the rest of the world yet. As you know, one of the signs is that they seem kind of withdrawn into their own world. So they're not learning from those natural cues, those environmental cues, and their skills end up lagging behind. They also may have sensory difficulties, behavioral difficulties. They may not be communicating effectively. And to be able to teach them those things, we need to provide therapy. Therapy should ideally be done in a one-on-one setting, depending on the needs of the child, so that their needs are being individually met. So we do developmental assessments where we identify what are the needs for this specific child and how is this specific child learning, what's the best way for them to learn. Is it project-based? Is it through reading? Is it through hearing? And they're taught that way, so that when they get those learning to learn skills, those basic skills that are required to learn from the environment around them, they will be more successful. And the earlier that this is done, the better the outcomes. I hope I answered that for you.
Yes. Maybe just to also shed a little bit of light. I have seen George also wanted to say something about therapy.
Yes.
George, yes, most welcome.
Sorry, I'm just trying to put my charger on my laptop.
Okay. George,
I'm here.
Okay. As you wait for Pooja to finish that, George, you wanted to shed more light on that question, or that's okay? Okay, I think George is not with us. Okay, Pooja, you talked about ABA, and I know that many caregivers are wondering what ABA is. Why is it essential? It's fairly a new thing for many caregivers. Would you give us a highlight, just a brief highlight of what ABA is and why it's necessary for a child with autism, and especially when it comes even to education?
Sure. So applied behavior analysis. The applied part of it implies that the behaviors that we are working on is something that is socially significant. That means it's important to the family, it's important to the community, it's important to the society around them. Behavior is anything a living person does. So talking, walking, going to the toilet, writing, reading, all those are different behaviors that we do on a daily basis. It's a bit of a misconception that behaviors are usually looked at from the negative light, the screaming, the biting, but behavior is anything that a living person is doing, including the biting and the screaming, but also the other aspects. And analysis is obviously we're analyzing these behaviors that are important for this child, for this family, for that society, and looking at how we can increase behaviors that are wanted and decrease behaviors that are undesirable. So when we look at all these different behaviors that are required, we're able to identify with the family and with the developmental assessments that we conduct what needs to increase, what needs to decrease. Now, ABA is a scientifically proven set of principles that come with different tactics and methodologies and different tools that we are able to apply to those behaviors to see the increase or the decrease that is desirable. We collect data. While we are doing this, everything is broken down into little steps, and it's all the decisions that we make are based on this data that we are collecting. So it's a very scientific process. If you look at the research body out there on autism, ABA actually shows the highest amount of evidence that to show children with autism improving. So that is ABA in a very, very tiny nutshell. So why is it important? Because we're able to identify all those, little behaviors that are important to the families. So I'll give you an example. It's very easy to think that, okay, this child needs to work on toileting, on feeding themselves. They need to start their academic skills. They need to work on communication and so on. We had one family who came and said, it is important to me that my child is able to kneel in church to receive communion. So that was a program that was developed to teach the child that. There are different aspects that we must consider while working with the family. And this gives each child that individualized requirement that they need. And as we proceed with the therapy aspect from there, ABA helps the child gain those skills while reducing any undesirable behaviors during in the process. And because it's data driven, it is not just, oh, I think your child is doing great. They're doing so great now. They're saying more things, but really maybe it's your perception that you are now understanding the child better, but they're saying the same things. When it comes to the objectivity and the scientific basis, we're able to actually put a number and value on all the progress and all the programs going on. So it's actual evidence that the child is improving.
Okay, thank you very much. Pooja, there are questions coming in, and one of it is from Ella. One of her questions is, assist with names of school along Gong Road that offer ABA. Would you happen to know that?
There are none. There are no schools along Gong Road that offer ABA. ABA, must be offered. I should also go into a little detail about this because ABA is a very intensive intervention. It's a set of principles that have to be learned and applied accurately. Not just anybody can do ABA. So there are different levels of certification. There is a basic certificate that you can have, but they must be supervised by BCBA, certified behavior analyst, or a qualified behavior analyst. So anyone who says that they do ABA, please ask who their supervisor is, or if they have the specific requirements to be able to provide that therapy. Because if ABA is not done correctly and is not supervised by somebody who has been trained in the process, it can cause more harm. So you must always make sure that it is being supervised. Having said that, there are 3 certified individuals in our country, of which I am one. So be a bit cautious about who you're engaging and who is saying that they provide ABA. There is nobody along Gong Road I know that in a school setting that provides ABA, but you can engage one of the BCBAs to be able to support your child within your school setting. That is something that you can do.
Oh, maybe what is a BCBA for a caregiver?
board certified behavior analyst. So that is somebody who has been to school, done the hours, been supervised, and sat international exams to be able to be qualified to supervise ABA interventions in place.
Okay, thank you very much, Pooja. I see there's a request for the contacts here. Share your contacts. And then are there scenarios where kids talk with little or no intervention? I think let's hold the questions to the tail end so that we can be able to also bring in the other panelists. I hope that's
might
okay.
have to leave before the end of the whole session. So if it's okay with you, I can go through a few of them very briefly.
Okay.
I'll share my contacts in the chat and then you can share that with everyone.
Okay.
So effectively potty train, that will be a long one. I would say please reach out so we can go through that in more detail. Potty training, it also depends. Is it a sensory thing? Is it a behavior thing? Is it the association? So we need to look at different aspects with this specific child to be able to understand why is the child struggling with potty training. There is no online training for nannies, but if you reach out, we can offer that for you. Scenarios where kids talk with little or no intervention. Depends on how much you are interacting with the child as well. So therapy is not necessarily something that is done in a therapy center. Parents are able to provide a lot of therapy for their child. One, turn off the screen because the child is not being stimulated when they're in front of the screen. And to create a routine for them where you are interacting with the child, singing with them, playing with them, talking to them, you'll be surprised how much that can lead to so much improvement. So really make use of that. Thoughts on diet. If your child has any GI issues, so gastrointestinal issues where they're struggling with diarrhea, constipation, or those kind of things, you need to find out what the culprit is because that could be affecting how they're learning. If you have a headache or you have a stomachache, you will also not learn effectively. And that is what the child is experiencing. But if they do not have any GI issues, then there is no diet that they're required to be on other than a healthy diet. A healthy diet means you need to minimize sugar, you need to minimize artificial colors, artificial flavorings, and put in as much healthy and nutritious fresh foods. Boxed foods, shelf foods are not healthy for any of us. So you need to consider what is a healthy diet with the fresh foods and your variety of your fats, your vegetables, your fruits, your carbohydrates, and your proteins. And if your child is on a healthy and nutritious diet, where you're looking at those things, it should not be an issue if they don't have any GI issues. What affects behavior is sugar. Sugar does make children hyperactive. So keeping that on a minimum is good. Highly refined foods are converted to sugar in the body. So think about healthy diet. Yeah, I think I've answered most of those. I will share contacts and then you can always reach out as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Pooja. We do appreciate it. Thank you for your time and for the insights. Yes. And I'm seeing one more question for Mr. Arika. Mr. Arika, you're with us before we move to George. Yes, Mr. Arika, there is a question for you here. Do caregivers, okay, do caregivers get counseling / training on how to handle a child with autism besides the process of assessment and placement at KISE?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So do caregivers get counseling? Yes.
Yes. I hope you are getting me.
Yes, we are.
Okay, that is indeed, that is very, we do have guidance and counseling. And as you come in, there's always so many things that our trained officers look at. They look at your entry behavior. And they might make a decision to come in and to give some counseling. And usually after you bring the child for assessment, we usually give counseling. Depends on how we look at the situation. We have those caregivers and parents who have not accepted the situation. And some of them, they come with very high expectations, and sometimes during the process, they break down. We have to have that session. We interrupt the entire process and then go back again to the drawing table, and then we do a lot of counseling. And this one continues even the time we go and we do the placement and follow the child to the school. Still counseling is done, especially again when we do the follow-up activities after 3 or 6 months. We usually engage caregivers with a lot of counseling, because there are so many things that we have to say, this one works, this one doesn't work. There are so many ways of breaking news, especially when we are handling the certain kind of comorbid conditions, whereby we are having a condition on top of another one. It can be multiple issues with the child. So this one requires a lot of counseling. So I think, yes, the guidance and counseling specialists at KISA, they are a part and a parcel of the assessment process. And we have to count on them, because our caregivers requires that.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Yes, maybe even from another point of view, from a caregiver's perspective, the day-to-day living of a caregiver with a child with autism, has its own challenges. So anytime, is the counseling free for parents, Mr. Rika, throughout the process? Can they walk in, or when it comes to the counseling, can they just walk in or book an appointment as,
Okay.
as the child grows? And yeah.
Thank you so much. KISA is a government institution. Most of the services that we offer, they are free services. And we don't charge. The only thing that when they come in for therapy, there's a small fee, I think it's 100 bob. They have to pay per session when they come for the therapy. And even that one is so subsidized that it's supposed to be free, by the way. So the caregivers are free to come in, and they can book for just counseling. That one is it's okay. There is that provision at our institution. So yes, you can come in and get the counseling process started. Yeah, apart from the other one that we give during the process of assessment and then placement.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe we have answered the questions that have come in so far. Feel free to continue asking, so that I know I'd said we'd ask at the tail end, but as they keep coming, we will ask, so that you can get clarity. So at this point in time, George, you're with us. Mr. George Otieno?
Yes.
Yes, welcome. Welcome to the session.
Thank you.
You were to come a little bit earlier, but it's good to have you now, just to tell us about the different we are told that autism is a spectrum and there are different spectrums. And all these, I believe, have a certain influence to the quality of education that each child has. Maybe you can help shed light a little bit more on the different spectrums and what are those key things that caregivers, when we talk about inclusion in education, for the children with the different spectrums, what they should just look at and consider when thinking about school and placement for the children.
Okay, thank you very much, Carol, and the team as large. I'm really happy to be with you here. These are always a very interesting section, actually autism. So by the name, I go by George Otieno. I'm an expert in the field of special needs. And I'm also happy, I must say that I'm happy to talk after my senior, Mr. Rika. Actually, I trained for assessment at Kenya Institute of Special Needs. So maybe he was my lecturer sometimes back. I'm happy to be with him here. So apart from doing assessment, I also help in trainings of the caregivers and the teachers around on how to handle children with disability. So at large, I just like the area, because we need, as a country, we really need to do much so as to bring in to achieve the goal of inclusion. So autism being a very, very new area actually into our country, because even as we speak, most people don't really get the difference between autism and intellectual disability. So that brings about confusion and wrong diagnosis, leading to wrong intervention. So I need this kind of trainings that you brought on board. I think if we go forward with them, they will really help us to understand what really autism is. So to go straight away, if we say autism, somebody might ask, what is this autism? So we say autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects 3 areas in a human being. That is socialization, cognitive processes, or imaginative, and the communication. So those 3 areas are the ones that are so much affected. And we are saying that it is a neurodevelopmental disorder, meaning that it is attached to the what? To the neurons. That's why Mr. Arika has said that when they are doing the assessment, there is referral to the medics, so that they can confirm. The assessors will just talk of suspecting an autism. So the confirmation will come from the doctor. So it means that there will be a scan that will be done to the nerves to ascertain that autism is present. So we are saying within the we call it a spectrum because it is an umbrella containing 5 other types of autism. So to go straight forward is number 1 is autism. So autism, the child with autism, if the child is diagnosed with autism, the first in the spectrum, they will have difficulties in the 3 areas that we have talked about. That is communication, socialization, and cognitive processes or imaginative. Then the second stage, we talk about the Asperger's syndrome. The Asperger's syndrome, these children are the least affected within the spectrum, in that they can be taken to regular schools and follow up academic work with this kind of an assistance. These are the kind of people that you find out that outside there they might be called geniuses, because the most new thing with people with autism is that once you show them the direction, they will stick to it and they will follow it up. So for example, if you find a child who is smart in IT and they are trained in that section, they will be best in their field. So that is Asperger's. Another thing about Asperger's is that they are kind of ritualistic. They like doing some kind of things in one direction. Like for example, now that we are dealing with caregivers, you might find that there are some colors that these children like the shouting colors, color red, we have pink, we have blue. So you find that a child might decide to like a toy, a red toy in color. So all the toys that you would really like to be playing with there, only that one toy. So you start asking yourself, why is this that this child only likes this instead of others? If you come to the house arrangement, there's a particular manner in which mothers like to rearrange their houses. You find that if this child is in this house, once they know that television is placed in one corner, and that is the corner that it always be, or they sit at what corner, that is where they will always want to be. Whereby if they find that there's a reorganization, they will start throwing tantrums. The third thing is when they're in school. Maybe when the child was brought to school, they were placed to sit in front. That is where they always want to sit. So once even the teacher tells them to move a bit or they change the sitting position, there will be a fight. So that are some of the characteristics of Asperger's syndrome. Then the third one in the spectrum we call pervasive. And pervasive are always affected in two areas. That is imaginative and socialization. They have problems in those two areas. And then the fourth area, we talk about child disintegrated. And child disintegrated is the most affected part of the spectrum. They have problems in all three areas. But the most affected one is communication. For example, children with autism, you will find them, they like repeating some kind of words. Like for example, if you tell them mambo, sasa, instead of giving the response, they will repeat the same word. So that is always, we call it echolalia in other terms. So children with pervasive are always in that same line. Communication is affected. Then the last one is something we call the Rett syndrome. And Rett syndrome is more often than not associated with girls. They say it affects girls more than boys. And this is now where they have the reduction in motor functionality. So those are the five conditions that are found within the spectrum. Yes. Is there any question, or I can continue?
Thank you very much. I think please go on as the questions come. I will bring them to your attention.
Okay, thank you. So we have talked about the categories of the autism. So the question is, what are the characteristics? Somebody might ask, how do I know that this child has autism? So we are saying that, first of all, as Mr. Rika said, we avoid labeling. And labeling is the most thing that has created negative attitude within our societies. So to avoid that, if you suspect some of the characteristics that are within the child, we ought that we should submit the child for the assessment, where now the confirmation has come, you will now be given, they will go away forward. So the first one is that I've talked of these children being ritualistic. They tend to perform the activities in a certain manner. So they like a routine. The second characteristic is that they really avoid, that's why we are saying that they have problems with socialization. They have problems with maintaining eye contact. You might be communicating with them or interacting with them, but they are facing other side. You might think that they are not following what you are doing, but they are together with you, in that they don't just want to maintain that eye contact. The second thing we've talked about, imaginative. They have problem with imagination. Like for example, you can tell them it is raining cats and dogs. With them, in their mind, they would really want to see that cat and dog raining. They are not able to internalize it. Thirdly, we are talking about transfer of skills. If you work with them in some activity, like for example, in school, you do addition. This addition at the lower level, it's totally different from the addition that is done at even grade 7. So them transferring the knowledge learned from that to another skill is always a problem with them. The fifth one, we talk about concentration. They rarely concentrate. They get bored very fast in the activity. So it is rarely they finish a task. And this is the reason as to why you find that those teachers who are not ready to work with them, or who are always in a hurry, wants to see results very fast, will not be able to achieve much. Because children with autism, they do things within 2 minutes, they are bored, they get to another activity. So you need to understand them and work with them within the said environment. And the next one we're talking about, they're always hyperactive, most of them. And Mr. Rika has talked about hyperactivity, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So this means that there are some kind of activities or food stuff, as they say, that triggers hyperactivity in them. So you as a caregiver or you as a teacher, you need to understand the condition of your child and what happens at what time, so that you can make them concentrate in each and every activity that is done in the classroom. So those are some of the characteristics that might show us that a child might be having autism.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. George Otieno. Maybe
Thank
just to ask, there is one of us asking about a bit of nutrition when it comes to children with autism. There's a question that has come in on nutrition. And I know Pooja had alluded to that, but from your take, because I think nutrition and education have a correlation for a child with autism, what are these basic things that a caregiver can easily get, like in our Kenyan setup?
Yes. So we are saying that there are some kinds of food stuff that the nutritionist advised that children with autism should not take. Number one is the milk products. Number two is the wheat products. Simply because that they have a component in them, the gluten in them triggers the hyperactivity in the children. So we are saying that instead of giving them, we give the alternative. For example, the wheat products. Instead of giving the wheat products, you can allude to things like the sweet potatoes. We talk about the arrowroots. We have the yams, can also subsidize that. But now the question comes, for example, in a family where there are two children, and one of them has an autism. So when it comes to nutrition, you find out that you will want really to force this child to be taking, because you are told by nutrition that this child should not take a wheat product. So you will want them to take, like, for example, a yam, and the rest of the family is taking the wheat product. There will be a problem and a fight. Ensure that there is uniformity. If it is the yam, everybody should take yam. Because by the time we're doing that, this child will feel that he or she is incorporated in whatever everybody is doing. But when you segregate them, they will feel out of place. And that one also will bring a behavior problem, because they are used to learning and unlearning behaviors within the environment in which they are. So nutrition is a very, very important one.
Thank you very much. I believe that most of our questions are answered. Just keep them coming. George, finally, when we talk about what are the yardsticks that a caregiver should look at when you are thinking the education that my child is getting, is it effective? What is that is effective? What yardsticks can a caregiver look at to see whether really there's inclusion, it's really working for my child, or something else needs to be done? For instance, looking for a teacher to assist, something like that.
So first of all, what we have said that the assessment report is what will give you the diagnosis. And then from the diagnosis, there will be intervention plan. So for example, most of the caregivers or most of the parents, they're always in rush. They want that immediate result. So what we are saying that if your child has autism, there are so many contributing factors that may affect education. Like for example, if the behavior, the child is hyperactive, there is no way this child can learn if he or she is hyper. So the first step is to engage the parent and the caregiver on how to maintain the stability of this child to incorporate what? Learning. So the first thing is that you will work on how to reduce the hyperactivity. So depending on the condition of that child, because we've talked about that spectrum, child A can have autism with child B, but they will behave differently. So the moment you come and start comparing your child with the other child, that is where the parents will go wrong. So you need to sit down with the teacher using the report, the assessment report, and prepare a treatment plan towards the child. So you can decide that from this term, we want to work on concentration. So in conjunction with the teacher, the caregiver, and the therapist, you will now be able to work together. Say that within a certain period of time, if the concentration is achieved, it will be a plus. Then you move to the next thing. But just going direct to education, I want my child to know how to read, and yet there are other contributing factors. It's like you are telling somebody to walk, and yet they don't have legs. That is how it operates. So the three must work together and agree. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We have questions coming in for you. One is elaborate on eye contact. Elaborate on eye contact exercises. And then maybe you can also give alternatives for milk and sugar as sweeteners advisable. And what's the average time span for talking with therapy intervention? And any medication or supplements for brain development. I think I can take them one at a time as you.
Yes.
Yes, as you respond to them.
I will start with the issue of medication. So one of the intervention measures is medication. And we are saying that medication is not just any other medicine or drug. It must be prescribed by the doctor. Remember, we have said that the confirmation of autism is done by a neurologist. So this is the person who will now prescribe. This is the person who will now prescribe the type of medicine to be taken and at what level. These medications are not treating. What we need to understand, first of all, is that disability is a condition. It is not a disease. And conditions are managed, but diseases are treated. So using medication, we are just managing condition. Like, for example, for those who are hyper, these are just medications that will help them calm them down to be able to undertake some activities like tasks in school. Some will be hypo. There is no way you can operate with somebody who is hypo. So you need to give them some medication to at least boost them to the average level at which they can concentrate in class. The second question was about for how long can you operate with the speech therapist, is it?
Average time span for talking with therapy intervention.
So it will now depend with which type of therapy intervention. Because if it is speech, there is a stipulated time for around 45 minutes. If it is the physiotherapist also for helping to calm down, have the activities like the sensory circuit, everyone will also go between 45 to 1 hour.
Okay. And then are there alternatives, sweeteners? No, alternatives for milk and sugar, and are sweeteners advisable?
So if we're talking about the sugar most often than not, I do like advising parents or the caregivers is that, first of all, attempt, or if you've worked with a nutritionist that has told you that do not give, because I don't really think that they are not supposed to be given sugar because sugar is required in the body. So what we need to do is just to reduce the amount of sugar that they take. Because there are some who, if they take too much sugar or they take anything with sugar, it will trigger hyperactivity. There are some that if they take it, they will become hypoactive. So I think we should, everybody should just study the pattern of behavior of their children. So if it is high, reduce the level. If it is a 1 spoon, you can even do half a spoon for them. Or if you can opt to go for the natural sugars, things with natural sugars. You've talked about, what is it again?
There is a question on what are sweeteners advisable? No,
Sweeteners are not advisable. Those ones will always trigger the hyperactivity in them.
Okay. An alternative for milk?
An alternative for milk, currently, it has not really been drawn. There's not unless I confirm. I'm not sure about that.
Is plant-based milk okay?
Plant-based milk, yeah, that is okay.
Okay. And what are the eye contact exercises? Elaborate on that.
Eye contact exercises.
Yes.
Number one, when you are working with a child with autism who does not maintain eye contact, always be in the same level. What do I mean by being in the same level? If you are seated, sit on chairs that will make you be at the same level with that child. Don't sit in as if like somebody who is seated, someone is seated on the floor, the other one is seated on the chair. There can be that discrepancy. Like now I'm looking at you. So I'm supposed to look at the seat that if I sit on will make me be at the same level with you. Secondly, keep on reminding the child, look at me, look at me, look at me. Or you can use those kind of hide and seek games. Like you cover your face and then at a certain point you remove the cover. You look at the face of the child. Or you can place something on top of your head, like a color that the child likes. Then you tell him or her to point at it. At no even given cost, they will have to look at you. And by the more you do it repetitively, the more he or she will get used to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. George Otieno. I believe that is quite elaborate. For the other question, we shall be asking Mr. Makwata when we give him the opportunity to speak. So thank you, George, Mr. George Otieno. So we'd like now to move to Isaac. Isaac, you're with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, as a special needs education, as a special needs teacher.
Yes.
What is the importance? First of all, who is a shadow teacher, and is a shadow teacher important? And then number two,
Yes.
How can you teach, your child at home, like you want to stimulate the cognitive ability and all that, because it's not everybody who can afford therapy. What are some of those tips that a caregiver can do from home?
What you can do at home is the fine motor skills, like playing with Play-Doh for their hands, and also some painting. Yeah, you can also do swimming. I'm also a swimming coach if anyone needs a swimming coach.
Okay.
Yeah, swimming helps the child to concentrate in class.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we are talking about a shadow teacher, who is a shadow teacher? Because there are caregivers who ask, do I need a shadow teacher for my child? Is it necessary?
Yes, it's necessary, especially in class, because there's another teacher who is supposed to be helping. Like a shadow teacher is the one who is supposed to be helping in class when the teacher is not around. And yeah, that's why she needs a shadow teacher in class, take them to the toilet, make sure they're okay in the field, such kinds of, also taking them to the toilet. feeding, especially the ones who need to be fed in class, during break and lunch. Yeah.
Okay.
When she's not around, you're the one to take charge of the class. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's important for a caregiver to put that into consideration.
Yes, and also swimming is important for the child.
Okay.
It helps them to calm down.
Okay.
Yes, I've shared my number on the chat, so I'm assuming coach and those one.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Teresa, you're with us as well? Okay, as we wait for Teresa, at this point in time, we know it's quite a journey for a caregiver, and finances and just having the registration process coming in is really critical. So I would like to bring on board Mr. Makwata from the National Council of Persons with Disability. Mr. Makwata, are you with us? I think we've lost Mr. Makwata, but as we try to get to him, Dr. Jessica, are you with us? Dr. Jessica? I think we have lost the two of them, but we will be reaching out to them. So I can throw this question to our panelists. We have this new, the new registration process. Is there any benefits for registering a child with this new registration process? Even for the caregivers, has any of us benefited from registering their child? Let's start with Mr. George Otieno. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the caregivers that probably you've met and they have registered. Have they had any benefit from registering from the national, I mean, for the card?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so you were talking about the card.
Yes, yes.
So we are saying that that card is very, very important. It is really, really very, very, very important because, for example, there are some funds that are disbursed by the government, and these funds are supposed to help people with disability. So you know that there is no way you can receive those funds if you're not registered with National Council. So when you indicate that card, it will help you to get to the funds. Secondly, this card also helps the parent. Like, for example, those parents who engage in kind of businesses. If you have that card, you can go to the government and will be exempted from paying the business tax. Wale watu wa kanjo, they won't come for you to ask you for tax. So this card has a lot of benefits. People just need to go for them.
Now, the person who will be exempted is the caregiver or the person who has the special need?
If it is a child, remember there is a tax exemption. If we are talking about tax exemption, that one will be for people who have disability but they are working. But in a scenario where a parent has a child who is still young and the parent is engaging in businesses, they will also be exempted from that. And that is very clear and is done in the county government. I can ascertain to that. In our institution, there are parents who have helped get that card. And currently, those who are engaging in businesses are not paying the government, the kanjo tax anymore, just because of that card. Even if you go to the bursary for the MPs and the rest, that card can help you get a bursary. And there are some who have achieved through that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, George. You've talked about your institution, and one of the things we do as Gifted Gems is to link caregivers with places they can get help. Would you just tell us a little bit about Edmond, where you work and what you do, and how parents with children with autism can actually plug in and benefit?
So our institution is called Edmund Rice Center, Nairobi. We are established in Langata, Otiende Health, next to Otiende Health Center. So what we do, we give services for children with disability. We work with the 3 areas. Assessment we do for all types of disability, because we get people from the surrounding and the rest. So after doing the assessment, depending on the condition, those who will come to our will be enrolled in our institution are of the following conditions. Number 1 is autism. Number 2 is intellectual disability. Number 3 is neurological disorders, where we have the cerebral palsy. So under intellectual disability, we also have Down syndrome. So those are the cases that we deal with. So in case out of the assessment, you fall under those 3 categories, we will enroll you in our institution. So what do? We offer education. We have the education department, we have the advocacy department, and socioeconomic department. So the entry point is that child with disability. This child with disability comes from the community, and this community must be enlightened about the rights of person with disability. So that component is taken by the advocacy. This same child comes from a household, and that household has other people apart from that child with disability. So we have the social economic empowerment, where now we empower the siblings and the parents. Now we're talking about people doing businesses. So under socioeconomic, we do business trainings like the financial literacies and business management. And then we can help them start up their businesses so that they can get something to help sustain the family. So under education, we give basic education skills. We have the 3 levels of education. We have the intermediate, the foundation, and the pre-vocation. So there are some children who might gain and get to the regular schools. We refer them to the regular schools to continue with their learning as inclusion part of it. Those whose disability is severe that cannot make them go to regular institution, we take them to pre-vocation class. In the pre-vocation class, we give them skills such as beadwork, we have tailoring, we have farming, where we do crop farming and animal husbandry. And then we also do the hair and beauty, where they're trained on how to do the shaving, the making of hair. And then we also do the crocheting. We train them for crocheting. So under the beadwork, we also have the tapestry part of it, mat making, and creative work. So that once they are done with this, we can now graduate them back to the community to continue with their work, or we take them to the production sector where they do the production and the institution will help them sell the products for sustainability. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe for the caregivers now, you're getting more enlightened on where you can plug in and get help. Yes, so as we are just about to wind up, 2 of our panelists are not available at the moment, but they will soon be joining. Maybe George could share with us your contacts for a caregiver who would want to reach out to you and to the center so that they can get help. I want to also request our other panelists to tell us, to give us their contacts and how people can reach out to them. Isaac has done that already. For us, if you want a special needs teacher or a swimming instructor, Isaac has done that, and Mr. Arika has told us about KISE. Maybe Mr. Arika can also provide the contacts for those who may want to contact KISE and get help from there as well. Please receive apologies from IAC. We were not able to have somebody join us today. Unless, is there any question from any of our participants? Anyone with a question? Just giving about a minute to pick any question in case there is one. Thank you, George. I hope you're all seeing these contacts that can help. Yes, as we move along. Any contact, any other question? Okay, Mr. Rika, please kindly go ahead on, you'd like to answer the question on the process for the registration. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. In fact, I was about to ask permission to leave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's okay, but I can go ahead and tell you briefly how it's done.
Okay.
When a caregiver brings a child at KISE, for example, we book the child for assessment, and then there is this report that we get from the doctor, and then we combine a report. And then this report that we compile, we usually, when we are doing counseling or talking to the caregivers, we usually advise them to go and register, because now we have confirmed the condition. The child can be registered by National Council for People with Disabilities. As George said, there are so many benefits for that card, that has been mentioned by George. Then we usually have the public hospitals that usually recommend and approve for that registration to take place. For example, if you are in Nairobi, we have Mbagati, we have Mama Rusi, Kenyatta National Hospital. I think they usually have that kind of forum to review and assess cases that have been presented to them, like once a week. I think it's on a Thursday. So the caregivers can be able to book with our report and the doctor's report. Then they go for another review so that there is in that form of National Council for People with Disabilities, there is a place where that panel needs to endorse and fill after seeing the child and the caregivers over there physically. And then when it is filled, when they are satisfied that the child can benefit by getting that card, then they endorse it, and then it is sent to the National Council for People with Disabilities for processing. Here it takes about 3 months for them to get the card. So it's a series of process. It's a process, and you cannot leave it open like that. It starts with us doing the assessment, and then recommending all the way, and then going back again to the hospital to face the doctor's panel, and then they look at you, and then they say that this disability for sure deserves to be given that kind of attention. So I think that's how it is done. And we usually have the forms at KISE when they come over to continue filling. and then getting ready. And then we advise them on which days they can be able to visit. That is how it's done. I hope I've exhausted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rika. We do appreciate. For our participants, I believe that question has been answered. So we are about to come to the tail end of our webinar, and we just want to thank you, to thank every last one of us who's created the time to be with us. I hope you have learned a thing or two. We are grateful. Thank you for the panelists. Thank you for the participants. We are very grateful. Share with us your feedback. You can look us up on the website at giftedgems.org, what we do. We have other resources as well that may be of interest to you or to a loved one who may need help. In case you need a support group, we have one called the Knit Together. You can just go on our website and click on the link and you'll be there. So, or you can call the office. We'll provide a PowerPoint slide just right after this webinar. I'll share my screen. And in case of any further information, please feel free to engage us. Otherwise, from us, we want to say thank you very much. And we would like to just close with a word of prayer, which I will pray. And from there, we'll be free to leave. So once more, thank you. But let us pray. So Lord, we thank you for this time that we have had. Thank you for leading us and guiding us and helping us to have a good discussion. And we pray that, Lord, you'd help us, and for every caregiver, that you'd strengthen them and give them the courage and the strength and the grace to go along their day as they provide care to their loved ones. We pray for provision and your divine protection. And for everybody who's joined in today, may you bless them and be with them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, thank you very much, and do have a blessed time. Asante. So feel free to leave. This is just a PowerPoint slide that will be going on as we unfold.
Excuse me, Carol.
Yes, please.
Did Pooja shared her contacts?
Yes, she did. Let me just, in the chat section, let me just do that again. I'm just trying to retrieve it. Thank you, Karen. Karen, as I retrieve Pooja's contacts, she's also given her contacts. Anyone who want to reach out to her, they're in the chat section. Yes, can you see Podger's? I hope in the chat section you can see Podger's contacts. Can you see Podger's contacts?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ella. You're most welcome. Thank you, Naomi. Okay. So I think it's goodbye from us now.